Virgin Media Shorts, championing undiscovered talent.
Hello everybody. Hi.
Hi.
Okay, I'm going to start this session now. My name's Rebecca Mark Lawson and I'm one of the people that curate the Virgin Media Shorts competition and have done since it was first conceived 5 years ago. What I want to do today is we have Jude and Michael with us, some people that are really experienced in the film industry and especially in the shorts. First of all, I just want to get a measure of who's out there so we can make sure that we're talking about the right things. How many producers in the room? Don't be shy. How many producers? Okay. How many directors? You're not sure? Writers? Okay. Oh, interesting. How many people consider themselves just filmmakers in general? Right, yeah, so not quite sure at the early stages of your career. How many people have applied to Virgin Media Shorts competition? Oh, that's interesting. Okay, well, next year I want you all to apply. Okay, so this is Jude Goldray. This is Michael Berliner. We've got a couple of clips. Well, we have a full film from Michael and a trailer from Jude that she's made. So I just want them to intro themselves and we'll watch the clips and the film and then we can go into the discussion once you've got the productions into your mind and you've seen what they are. We've got time for questions at the end. I mean, if somebody's got a really interesting, burning question that can't wait, put your hand up, and if it's interesting, we'll discuss it, and if not, we'll leave it until the end. Okay. Jude, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and how did you get into the film industry?
I started the film industry. I was basically really interested in, and I watched loads and loads of short films all the time. And then I started working for Life Size Pictures and with Rebecca, and we ran all of the UK Film Council's short film schemes that were running at the time. So I ended up working as an executive producer on lots and lots of short films, which involved selecting lots of projects, watching lots of show reels, reading lots of scripts, developing ideas, overseeing crews, that kind of thing. And so when the Film Council closed, since then I've been a freelance producer. So I'm kind of on the other side of it at the moment. I'm trying to build up my experience as a producer. So I've made some short films over the past couple of years. So yeah, it's definitely a lot tougher than having a full-time job. So that's where I am now anyway. And then yeah, the trailer is from a short film that we shot last year called Street Spirit.
Okay, and Michael?
Well, I started as a runner in 2006 and I've been producing shorts since 2008. And my day job, I used to work, I worked for 4 years at B3 Media, an arts agency based in Brixton. I was production manager there. I've now got a different day job working for The Guardian. But no, the kind of interesting side, my shorts. I've made 12 shorts since 2008 on budgets from basically nothing up to 50 grand. And right now I'm producing a BFI short, which is shooting in January. I'm currently working on a BBC half-hour comedy pilot, which is shooting in the new year, and I'm working on 3 different features, one for Northern Ireland Screen, one for the BFI, and I'm lucky enough to have one on the iFeatures development slate as well.
Fantastic. And what's the film that you're going to show today called?
So it's called School Portrait. This is one that I did last year. Last year was my craziest for shorts. I did 5, and this is one of the 2 no-budget ones that I did. Should I fully intro it now? Or?
No, we're going to watch Street Spirit. Sorry, I forgot to click there. I'm going to click again now. And then click again. Okay, this is Street Spirit.
I can't stay here. The night only gets darker.
That's probably the first time that's ever been seen on the big screen.
I think maybe once before, but that's it. Yeah.
Okay. Do you want to just tell us a little bit about Street Spirit? When was it made? How long is it? I mean, we've just seen a trailer there. Who the director is, etc.
Okay. Yes, it's by a writer-director called Tom Bailey, who I met at Edinburgh Film Festival, not this year, but the year before, I think. And at the time, I'd just finished a 6-month job, and he'd got some funding from Ideas Tap, which is for writers and directors and producers under the age of 25. I'm clearly not under the age of 25, but yes, he'd already got some funding. So it was a bit of an unusual one, because normally I'm working with writers and directors to develop ideas and then looking for funding and kind of starting that way. But he was looking for a producer, and he'd got this £5,000 funding, and I had like a gap of time of a couple of months, so I just kind of went for it. It was a bit opportunistic, but I obviously read the project and I looked at his previous work, and it was quite experimental, so I thought it would be interesting, and I kind of wanted to just experience that relationship and that the experience of going through that production.
And when did you shoot this?
And we shot it actually this time last year, and the actual post-production section has taken such a long time because it's low budget, and £5,000 doesn't get you that far, so there's quite a big sound design, so there's still some it's delivering around now actually. But
and how long is that?
It's about just over 10 minutes. I think it's about 12 minutes or something like that.
Okay. And Michael, I'm going to double click. Can you just intro your film a little bit? Tell us a little bit about how long it is, how you came to meet Nick, and when you shot it, etc. We're going to go into a bit more detail after we've seen it.
So as I said, this was a no-budget short, basically. By which I mean it completely in total cost about £200. I'd known the director, a guy called Nick Scott, who is a brilliant comedy director. Give him a Google. I've known him for 4 or 5 years. We'd never had an opportunity to work together. We always bumped into each other at events. And so when he came to me with this short script, which is only 2 minutes long, I thought it was really funny, but to be honest, my main motivation was I wanted an opportunity to work with him, basically, and to establish a working relationship and be better friends. And it turned out really well. We were really pleased with it. And rather than going the festival route, we went straight online with it. And Vimeo did it as a staff pick, and that led to a chain reaction. We ended up with 1 million views in 10 days. And we're in the Metro and Evening Standard and that kind of thing.
Wow. Okay, so we're going to watch that now.
Right, come on then. Come in, sit down.
No.
Stop smiling. Right, we're going to do something different today. Let's call it a reality check. I want you to repeat after me. University tuition fees.
University tuition fees.
Okay, good. The banking crisis means I'll never afford a home. Go on.
The banking crisis will never afford
No. Just say crisis.
Crisis.
Yeah. Have you filled out your tax return? Why not?
I don't want to.
Very good. Is it a koala or an elephant?
A koala.
Get rid of it. Climate change. Boom. Congestion charge. There isn't a pet heaven.
Oh, and another thing, you don't get pocket money. You have to work hard every day. Look, will you just stop smiling, please? All right, fine. Look, I've got all day. All right. Did you know that 60% of marriages end in divorce? Yeah? 2 people meet, get on really well, and then they start growing apart, and they grow further and further apart until one of them leaves you, takes off your stuff, and your house, maybe your kids. Oh, God. You are just not going to stop smiling, are you? Okay, let's get on with it. Alright, give it your best shot. Oh, I suppose I can always get a new house. Hey, is your mum single? Alright, well, keep me posted.
That was a bit of a Twitter experiment after the film. Yeah.
Oh, you mean the 3 pictures and...
Yeah, I mean, what we did is we, to try and capitalise on the audience as it kind of exploded, was we set up a competition where people had to tweet us their own school portraits, and then we made a Christmas special, which was all of our favourite hilarious pictures of people when they were kids, having the piss taken out of them by the photographer. So, yeah.
Excellent, that's a brilliant, very novel way of... So we've got 2 very different pieces of work there. I mean, you can imagine what the scripts look like. You know, one's shot at night outside, it's got one main character in it, it looks quite dramatic in its tone, it's actually quite experimental as well, isn't it? The other one is very contained, essentially in one location, but you've got lots of different children. Obviously that's quite a difficult thing. I just want to go back to I mean, you were talking a little bit about the fact that you met the director at the Edinburgh Film Festival, and that you had a little bit of time at that moment and the project had funding. I mean, when it was conceived, how did you feel about it? I mean, did you think, well, I'm just going to do this? I mean, it's a year later now and it's still not finished. How did you approach it? Did you think, oh, we need to shoot it straight away? Or what were your kind of thoughts about it right at the beginning?
Yes, I mean, I thought I kind of had a length of time in mind that I could work on it. I mean, it's quite an ambitious project for the budget, so it needed, and it didn't come with, you know, loads of relationships or loads of equipment or anything. So
well, because the director was new.
The director was, yeah, he's very new. He has done some very short pieces before, and he's done quite a lot of painting. He's got lots of kind of very visual ideas. So because it already had funding, I kind of felt like I had to be prepared for it to just be as it was. And normally, you know, if you haven't got funding, you spend a bit of time developing and with that in mind, but you know, Ideas Tap had already, as it was, given it some money. So I think I sort of had some ideas about how, as a producer, I'd like to develop the story, but I also had to kind of just accept that it might just be as it was. And for me, it was just, yeah, it was sort of an opportunity. I mean, although it's a year on now, and I think there's still things to do with kind of post-production stuff as a producer, you're obviously doing that, like, it's not like a big intense amount of work. So the intense bit was pre-production, production period, and you have to be able to kind of dedicate that amount of time, you know, specifically for that kind of film.
So what did you like about the director in terms of, you know, he didn't have a massive show reel, but what did you see in his work that you thought that made you want to work on the project?
It was a combination between, so there were 2 very short films I looked at, and also some of his artwork on his website, and then the script I thought could be, I felt it would be a slightly experimental film. It's not got a kind of really obvious journey, but it has some really fun visual ideas. You could only see a glimpse of it in the trailer, but there's kind of some really crazy kind of sound design and sort of this weird mound. This is just sort of go under the earth, under the ground, and also all the kind of like, it was sort of set, it was a post-industrial feel with all we shot quite a lot in this scrapyard. So I thought it would be quite. I think it was kind of the visual ideas that drew me to the project, because, you know, I read quite a lot of quite straight dramas and feel a bit more sort of television. So I thought it might be quite cinematic.
And did you think it would be a challenge for you as a producer? You know, you've got big sets, big set pieces here. Did that come to mind? Maybe you were doing things that you'd never done before.
Yes, yeah, it was full of challenges. I can't, you know, in kind of every aspect of it. 'Cause it's got big, demanding art department. You know, it was. I mean, actually, when I originally agreed to do it, it did have an art director attached who was already worked with the director, and because I was a bit concerned about that side of things, but actually they had to pull out, so that became one of the biggest challenges, was finding a new production designer who was, we couldn't pay anyone anything, so.
So you had £5,000,
Yeah.
and that was from Ideas Tap.
Yes.
And you can see the logo up at the front of the trailer. I don't know if anybody knows about Ideas Tap, but it's a really, really good place to go for funding, and also just to kind of sign up to. They do newsletters and forums and all sorts of stuff, don't they? They have a whole database of funding places to go for funding, and they also give out funding themselves. And they also do mentoring schemes, all sorts. If you're a new and or young filmmaker, it's definitely a website to go and visit.
So yeah, with the films, not everyone in the team has to be under 25, so it's still worth looking
One
at.
key collaborator, and,
Yes.
and some of the stuff they post is for under 30s. Like there's something Sky Arts Ignition, which is for up to 30s.
Yeah. Going back to School Portrait, I mean, you say that you knew this guy for a while, but you wanted to solidify your working relationship with the project. I mean, when did he come to you with a script? Had he written something on a piece of paper, or?
Yeah, it was kind of out of the blue, because we knew one another, but we hadn't actually talked about making something. And he's really prolific. He makes a lot of low and no budget content, and yeah, with this, it was I loved the script, and I really liked the stuff that he did. I mean, the script was kind of a template, really. I mean, what it turned into on the day was a lot of different questions were tried out. A lot more kids were used than ended up in the film, but we did produce a far longer version of the film as well, which was given to all of the kids, so no one felt too upset about not being in the final thing. And we had to carefully manage what they heard as well. You didn't want to say anything genuinely mean to them. Sometimes it was suddenly look sad or something. So it was a mixture of different things that we did with them, but we always shielded them from the mean content.
So what you see there is that the real questions being asked, the real words, or have you got different pieces of sound over different?
Most of it is them something else being said to them.
Yeah.
Most of it. Some of it is the actual, like when they're asked to repeat something, like university tuition fees. Obviously, some of the kids could say it fine, and it wasn't as funny. So we were going for the kids that couldn't really say it, which is and crisis as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so did you, develop the script in any way? Did you say, oh, well, we can't shoot that because that's going to cost too much money? I mean, you obviously didn't have any funding at this point. Had you decided that you were just going to shoot it on nothing, or what were your thoughts?
He came. I mean, last year was very busy because I was doing so many shorts last year, and there wasn't any funding around at that time that I could go for that I knew of. And I thought it could be done. I mean, he said, I'm willing to put 200 or 300 quid into this, and I thought that was probably okay. I mean, obviously the main problem is how do you get all those kids to appear in a film? I've done a couple of other shorts starring kids, and it can get very expensive with working hours and chaperones and having their parents accompanying them to and from set and that kind of thing. So I thought the only way that we can do it on no budget is to find a drama club that is going to be on board. And so when I was a kid, I went to Stagecoach. Don't know if you've heard of it. It's this thing for kids. I just went to them, and we ended up recceing 3 different stagecoaches in London. And as I was saying to you guys earlier, that the actual deciding factor wasn't the kids themselves, because there were so many kids, and they were all great, and you could experiment with them all. That wasn't the deciding factor. It was what the person was like coordinating the stagecoach, and 2 of them were throwing up all of the problems and things that we'd have to get. And the one that we ended up going for, which was in Croydon, was like, I love you, I love this film, please come here. And he said, I'll be your coordinator, I'll go to the parents and get the release forms from them and coordinate it all for you. So that was the obvious choice. We shot probably with 3 or 4 times as many kids as what ended up in the film.
And what did you actually spend your £300 on?
It ended up as 200 in the end,
Okay.
and that was so the kids were coming there anyway, and we just pulled them out of their class when we needed them, so they weren't even waiting for us. So no cost at all with the kids. It was a crew of like 5, so it was expenses, pizza, and a big sheet that we stained the night before. and that pretty much was it. Yeah.
And your crew of 5, director, producer.
Yeah, it was writer, director, me, the actor, and then after that it was the director and my girlfriends who were there just kind of helping out, and then we had a costume person, and that was it.
So who shot it? The director.
Sorry, no, we did have we had a DP
And
who
he-
was there. Yeah.
Did he do sound as well then?
Yes, he did, and he's a good friend of the directors, and he came with his own kit.
Right. Okay. I mean, in terms of production elements, like I said, they're very different, aren't they? I mean, yours is inside, yours is outside. And what do you think that when you first looked at that project, when you first actually seriously started breaking it down, what were the biggest production elements that you were worried about in the script?
Yeah, as I was saying earlier, I don't know where to start. I think, kind of looking at the project and looking at the budget, I sort of thought it was doable, but would be really challenging. Definitely the production design, because there are some effects and there's some kind of lots of weird elements that need quite heavy production design. I thought that would be, and that was a challenge. And there was also a built set, and then there was kind of like different locations. So shooting outside in the scrapyard, I was sort of worried about the health and safety elements. I mean, there are several stunts, so the insurance was quite high on this film, but we were covered for everything. Kind of night shoots in November, and sort of, maybe even thinking ahead to the post-production, and I mean, I sort of thought it would take a long time. You can get people, but then they have to do it in their free time if you're not paying them.
So post-production for the kind of elements that were the SFX elements.
Yeah, and the sound design as well.
Right.
There's composer and a sound designer.
Okay. And how did you go about kind of surmounting those challenges? I mean, what did you pick out as being the major thing that you were going to base it around? Because I know you had a night shoot in a scrapyard, which sounds to me like an absolute nightmare.
Yes. I mean, I think first thing was that I was kind of reassured about the art department because someone was attached, but when they had to drop out, that was suddenly a really big challenge. But I did actually have a co-producer, Kate Hara. So I don't think I could have done it without having a co-producer because we both had other jobs and so on. So it took both of us doing an enormous amount of work. And the big thing I was really worried about was because it's a new director and we were shooting it in Reading, and I don't know any crew in Reading, but London, but there's still a bit of cost involved there. So he wasn't bringing lots of relationships. It's obviously a lot easier. I've made films with people where they've got a load of mates who are quite talented that will just jump on board and do it. That's like an enormous amount of work done already. So that I knew was going to be like the long haul, and it is, and it's it's kind of like you don't know whether the first person you contact will say yes, or it could be 3 weeks of trying to get a DOP. And the directors did have like a lot of people. He did kind of want really good experienced people. So we just sort of went for it. It's not necessarily the best way to do these things. It's much better if they've got someone good who they have a relationship with, but that's just where we were. So we just had to put the work in, so that was quite a big challenge. I suppose with the locations, I was actually I was worried, but then we shot it where the director lives, and he did a huge amount of location work, so that was okay. And when I went down to do a location recce, I was completely reassured because we went to the scrapyard. It was an amazing scrapyard location, and there were all these guys who work there, and they were really, really helpful, and they let us go there for free. They had an inside bit where we could keep warm. They knew, and they actually have a lot of people shooting there. So they'd just seen it all before. They said, yeah, we've got Scrap Heat Challenge, we listed all these things. They sort of had Charlotte Church here. It was like, okay, Charlotte Church.
Go-to scrapyard.
Yeah, it was the go-to, and so, so it was actually that. It's something, that reassured me because that was really quite worrying. But then it was like they're completely used to having a film crew here, and I was less worried about the health and safety. I knew we'd have somewhere to go. We could use anything we wanted. We could use all their power supply. So sometimes the thing that you think is going to be the most challenging isn't, and in a way the actual indoors location, because it was built set rather than rooms, which was a bit crazy, was an enormous challenge, and we had various problems with that. So, yeah.
Just very quickly, I just want to. I mean, you had £5,000 from Ideas Tap. You had 200 quid from your director, but generally, where would you have looked for, and where have you got funding from? I mean, there's less funding now than there was from the traditional routes, but there's surely lots of other and different places that you can go. Do you want to just kind of outline to the guys here where they might look for funding?
Yeah, I mean, I know it feels like the funding landscape is kind of dead. There's very little money out there, but I found it interesting that a few days ago, Philip Ilson, who's one of the short film festival programmers at London and London Short Film Festival, he does this weekly newsletter, and he said they've had over 1,000 applications of British shorts to London Short Film Festival this year. And I think that's amazing when you think that there's very little funding out there. Obviously, one route is just trying to do it yourself, and that is very dependent upon the concept, having a very simple concept. As for actual funding routes, obviously BFI Shorts happened. I've heard that they're not running that scheme as it was this year again, but I mean they have Shorts money, so watch out for something else coming. The London Borough Film
London
Fund
Borough's still going.
that launched very recently,
Yeah.
And for the first time ever, it's open to all of London, I believe, instead of certain boroughs.
So then, if you don't live in London, then I don't think they've got anything yet, but it's worth looking at Creative England and signing up to their newsletter, because they may well do something regional. I'm not sure.
Well, they do offer feature development plots, and you can argue that a short film is part of feature development, and I think they give up to 25 grand per project. So.
I think it's worth. I mean, it's worth getting on. Also thinking a bit about the kind of low budget sort of new features area. So Creative England's remit is part of it is to develop filmmaking talent all around.
It's
outside of London, but England.
Yeah, not Scotland.
Not Scotland and
Wales.
Wales. Yeah. So they, sometimes sort of applying, if you want to apply for some development money with an idea, even if it's for a feature and you want to make sure, can be a good way of getting on the radar of those who are looking out for new talent. And then if something does come up, you've already started sort of getting yourself out there a bit, and they do some kind of training schemes and things like that. So it's, yeah.
And then there's all the other outside, that if you have somebody that you're working with that is based in one of the other areas that has money, like Scotland, Ireland, Wales, they all have Northern Ireland and Southern Ireland, they all have production and development funds as well. So
Yeah,
I think generally that there are one-off things that you just have to have your finger on the pulse a bit to know that they're happening. But I think social media is a massively useful thing for that, for Facebook and Twitter. And mail-outs are incredibly useful. I think Film London's is one of the best for capturing loads of opportunities, and that comes out once a week.
I would just get on as many of those as possible. There is a London Short Film Festival. That newsletter's brilliant. You can email them to get on that. Any sort of like.
It's called What We
I think
Like.
it's called We Love.
We Love.
I think if you go just Google like London Short Film Festival,
It's
you'll
their
probably
mailing
find an
list,
email
yeah.
address. Yeah, or
really
things.
good.
Things like Ideas Tap. Twitter's really good because like someone like Ideas Tap will tweet opportunities that are coming up. Also probably things like For Talent. There's a scheme that's open at the moment actually called Collaborate, which is open I think like till later this month.
It's got Collaborate, but with an 8.
With an 8, yeah. And that's like a ranking scheme, and they've got 8 in production at the moment. It's really good actually, but it's very, very competitive. I know last time they had about 1,000 applications, but it's a great scheme.
And it says on their website that they're going to close it at 1,500 scripts. So if you're going to put something in, you need to get it in quickly, because I think it launched on Wednesday, did it?
Yes.
And because there's
That's
so little funding
yeah.
around, everyone goes for them.
And what are the budgets, do you know?
I think it's about $8 grand.
Okay.
Yeah. There's also something else that's just launching, or about to launch, which I discovered is called Writer's Couch. I mean, that is for writers, but it's quite a different scheme. It's not to make a short, but they're looking for interesting writers basically. So they're actually not. It's not so much. You do apply with a project, but they're not. just looking for the idea, they're looking at the quality of the writing. So that looks quite interesting.
And you mentioned the Writers' Room. You were funded last year by the Writers' Room, is that right?
Yes, that's right. I mean, that was an opportunity run by BBC Writers' Room and B3 Media, where I used to work, and I produced one of the films that ended up getting commissioned. So yeah, there's BBC Writers' Room. I was also lucky enough last year to get one from BBC HD, and I've written down as well. I mean, this year there's been a scheme run by Soho House and another run by Bombay Sapphire. So, you know, there are companies out there who, you know, they might have a vested interest for why the film's getting made, but, you know, if it means you can get your film made, great. And I think finding out about these, is just social media and signing up for as many mailing lists as you can find.
And when you're making applications to places like this, what would you say? I know you've got a lot of experience with reading lots of applications when you've been assessing schemes and what have you. What would you say are the kind of the most important elements to consider when you're making an application to something like that?
Well, I think I think it's obviously kind of making sure that you're eligible and reading the guidelines properly. I think just sort of having been on lots of panels selecting projects over the years, the most important things are always the kind of the central idea and story, and whether that's kind of clear what it's about and whether it's sort of original and interesting. And also the previous work, particularly of the director and their sort of visual ideas. And if that's a scheme for new directors, then sometimes that they ask for, you know, related work like photography or even just some clips or whatever to kind of show that they've got some interesting, they've got some, you know, showing their craft really, and their sort of director's voice, and also the kind of experience of the team and whether that project, that budget and that idea is right for them. But really it's kind of work, the team and their work and the idea and how whether it's exciting and original. And they often ask for lots of things like, you know, director's vision, and you spend like years applying to things, but you do have to fill those in. But they're the bits probably to agonise less over, because the people selecting are looking for the potential for the film really. And I don't think there's any need to kind of bring loads of extra stuff if you're applying or if you get an interview. I've been on lots of panels where people have brought amazing kind of storyboards and things they spent hours and hours on, which are lovely, but they wouldn't, you know, it's whether you like the story, it's whether you like the idea and the work
for development.
and the potential for, that's the other thing actually, is that if it's being selected sort of for a development bit particularly, then they will be looking for filmmakers who are open and willing to kind of talk about the idea and develop it, rather than sort of resistant, this is what I want to do, because I mean that can obviously sort of hinder you getting onto that development part of the scheme.
And Michael, you said last year you shot 5, but you've made 12 in total. And how many applications have you actually done? Lots.
Yes, I've done lots and lots and lots. I couldn't really put any kind of a number on it, but
more than 10.
Oh yeah, well I've made 12. So,
right. So 30.
Yeah, I mean it's just a constant string of applications. More than that, I'd say.
Okay.
But yeah, I think it is very important to take your time on that application. Really think about it and think about, if you were the person reading this, what would you think? Or show it to someone else to get their thoughts on it. And I think spending twice as long on half the number of applications would make you much more likely to get funding.
That's good advice.
I think.
So do some research into who you're applying to, who might be reading it.
Like, you know, I
budget
used to
level, that kind of thing.
Yeah, you know, I used to read stuff for B3 Media, and it's just amazing the amount of stuff you get where they really haven't read the guidelines or haven't really thought through their application. You know, things missing on the application form which are down as essential to send in, or you know, you get documents where the name of the document is the film title and then for Film London or for so
it's a cut and paste job.
Yeah,
from
where
their last application.
from their last application, and you know, I think that stuff is important psychologically to show that you care about that application.
The other thing, and the other thing is to not lie as well. Like,
because you will be found out.
You will be found out. I
If
mean,
they're
I do a lot of
interested in you.
assessing still for things like Collaborate, and and I always Google people, and I always look up whether they have actually been selected for that festival or won that award, because often people put things like, they put classic one is putting Screened at Cannes, and actually they have had their film in Cannes Short Film Corner, which is a market which you can, you know, pay to be in. So there's no, like, that's the kind of thing I'll always check.
Who's done that here? Admit to it? No.
And the thing is, you'll only not be rumbled if they're not interested in the project. And
True.
if they are, then you'll definitely get rumbled.
Is Holly here? At the back? Just wondering what time we're going on till. Can't remember. Is it 2 o'clock?
It's till 3:15.
Sorry? All right. Okay. Great.
Till 3:15.
Okay. I want to talk a little bit. Sorry, it's my granny ringing. Sorry. I know. I've just cut her off. Sorry. I want to talk a little bit about what happens if you know, when you get rejected. So you've made all these applications, you've put your heart and soul into it. Your project's absolutely brilliant, but it doesn't get picked. I mean, how do you deal with you know, lots of unsuccessful applications as a producer?
It's just really just don't lose heart. I mean, it's just so competitive, and I do spend half my life filling in applications. I mean, I suppose because I've been on the other side of it, I know that I've read tons of really good projects that haven't been selected, and you know, it's just, I wouldn't kind of think like that you're just never going to get selected for anything, but obviously you've got to find other ways to keep going and to be developing your skills and experience in your craft. So it's finding kind of really low budget, no budget ways, whether that's kind of, you know, developing all your relationships or having friends that can do stuff anyway, or finding actors, or kind of, you know, doing really inventive things, and at the same time you know, keep getting yourself out there and continuing to meet people, and it's just doing everything kind of else that you can, and you've got to be really thick-skinned, unfortunately, but and not sort of feel like, you know, it's just not going to happen for you. But I think also it's really important to just keep checking your own the ideas that you're working with and getting people to read them, like whether it's friends or people in the industry, because they're all just audience people, and the people who are selecting for funders are just people who watch lots of films and read lots of projects and have got ideas and taste. So, you know, they're not kind of superhuman, and you need people that can be honest with you, because there's no point kind of flogging a dead horse, really, if something's never going to get selected. And the other thing is to, like, really, really important is to, if say you're making shorts and features as well, is to just watch as many as you possibly can, because it's very hard to know what ideas are original unless you are watching stuff, and I see stuff coming in all the time that, like, there'll be the same idea loads of times, and it's not, but people aren't to know that unless they, you know, it's just one of those things. So whenever you can get to a festival like London Short Film Festival, or watching the Virgin Media Shorts, or anything that's online, like, as much as you can will really, really help you to work out, like, getting the money.
I think I'd say don't take it personally, because they're just because of the supply and demand of the system, there's more projects that deserve funding out there than there is funding. So it doesn't mean your project shouldn't get made. And I think don't rely on or wait for funding. You know, if it fits in with the timeline, then obviously yes, give it a go. But I wouldn't say your project is in the trash just because you can't get that funding. I think that you normally pull in so many favours. Well, it depends on your budget, obviously, but a usual short, you pull in so many favours that the in-kind budget, as in the stuff that you haven't paid for that's favours, the in-kind budget is probably going to be larger than the cash budget. That's certainly true of no-budget films. So it's not the be-all and end-all, and you can make great stuff depending on the script that it is on, with no funding. And I think it's I think not everyone making shorts, unfortunately, is going to be able to make a kind of paid, livable profession out of it, and that's simply because of the number of people trying to do it versus the amount of audiences which pay for people to be in those positions. But at least people can do it now, you know, with equipment being so cheap and accessible, and so it's more of a meritocracy that hopefully the best people end up with the commissioning slots eventually, as long as you slog hard enough.
Yeah.
It's worth thinking about the directors that have managed to kind of get things going without actually any money to start with, and that's happened for sort of feature films as well. Like ones, I saw Another Earth recently, which is a really low budget feature. It's really, really brilliant. I don't know if anyone's seen it. But they started with just a location, a house and a school, and the writer is also the star in the film. So they just went and shot some stuff, and then off the back of that and the script, got funding to make the film. And similarly, looking at Ben Wheatley's work, who made a kill list for his first feature, Down Terrace. I mean, he didn't make shorts, he went straight in for a feature on £5,000, and he basically had some friends with a house in Brighton and an actor who was also the editor, and he kind of, he saved on sort of actual production value into sort of short documentary style, but really just focused on performances and the script. Which, I mean, the script, it potentially it can be in-kind things and not expensive things.
Yeah, and that was
So-
on film Channel 4 last week,
Yeah.
wasn't it? Just very quickly, we've only got 15 minutes left, so I want to just throw it open to you lot, because you all look really interested, and I know you've all got really burning questions. We've got a huge amount to talk about, but is there anything in particular or any questions that you want to ask? We've got a mic here, I think. Hiya.
You won't need a mic for me.
Okay, what's your name?
My name is Joe. I'm a third-year film studies student at the University of Kent, and I just wanted.
Can everybody hear Joe?
Can everybody hear me?
Just take the mic anyway.
Hello. Oh, awesome. Yeah, I just wanted to ask Jude. Basically, you showed us the trailer for Street Spirit, and I like the look of it. But then when you went to talk about the film, you sort of mentioned it being quite experimental. And these great visual ideas, and obviously, a lot of that's going to come from the sound design, which you mentioned took a lot of time for post-production. And is it finished yet, or not quite, or when,
Sorry.
What's the question?
No, sorry, no.
Is it actually different from what the trailer
Oh,
looks like?
well, this is it, because I didn't get that
Yeah, sorry.
that impression from the trailer. So I'm rambling on.
I was thinking that when I was watching it as well. Actually, I mean, this is really new, and I'm really sorry there wasn't necessarily a good representation of the film.
Yeah.
It sort of, it hasn't quite delivered, and we need to actually.
But I think what you get from that is it's about a young man's kind of awakening, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's what you get from that. That's what essentially the film is about. But it has lots of experimental elements. I only know because I was there looking at the script at the very early stages. I think if you put the experimental elements in, you've only got, how many seconds for a trailer? It needs to be very, very short. So I think usually you put your major elements in to say this is the story, rather than putting in your experimental bits. People wouldn't understand what it's about.
Not too worried about this. Is maybe not good advice. I'm not too worried about it because I don't really watch short film trailers. I just watch the films. So
Yeah.
I mean that's maybe, obviously trailers can be a good thing, but I've seen an awful lot of really bad short film trailers that kind of, I don't know, it's just
do more
funny.
harm than it not
Or do
existing.
more, yeah, exactly, do more harm. So
I've
maybe
seen
we
some
should
great
revisit
trailers of short
Yeah.
films, and then the shorts are terrible.
Yeah.
So,
That's I'm worried about that, and just generally. I mean, in a way, that's quite. It doesn't tell you that much. It's just a glimpse of the visual style. So, I don't know. We'll have a look at it, but it's
And I was
it's
just
a good
wondering,
point. But yeah, I don't know whether I'm gonna. I think I'm going to worry more about getting the film out there just as it is than
And
the
what's
trailer.
the future of the distribution when you're looking to release it?
Well,
that mic's off, by the way.
Yeah.
I just asked when it's going to be distributed, released online.
Well, basically, you should come to the next panel. It's our priority is film festivals for this film. It's not a comedy short. It's not something I think is going to, get loads of clicks on YouTube or necessarily like get a sales agent. But I think its kind of niche is possibly shorts festivals, but with the like experimental films like Oberhausen and Clermont and things like that. So we will just be really persistent and send it to as many festivals as possible and hope that someone accepts it. So I think that will be our priority for this film anyway.
Right, thank you very much.
Very quickly, Michael, can you outline, you had a really interesting and novel way of getting your film out there. Do you want to just in a nutshell tell these guys about what you did?
Yes, so with School Portrait, we decided just to experiment with it because we thought it's not really a quintessential festival film, and we thought it could get good word of mouth and make people laugh. So we decided just to go online, but we really had no idea it was going to explode in the way it did. But I mean, I was just lucky enough that one of the Vimeo curators, and this was without me prompting them, spotted it. Thought it was really good, and without telling me even, I just got an email saying your video has been added to the Vimeo staff picks group. And from that, we ended up getting 50,000 views overnight. And then when that happened, the director and I put together you might think it's kind of preemptive, but we thought, why not give it a go? We put together a press release, just kind of selling on how, in the midst of this recession and the doom and gloom that adults are feeling, a young kid brings a smile to everyone's faces, that kind of thing. And I just sent that out to lots of websites and some newspapers, and a couple of local newspapers picked it up, but the thing that kicked everything off was one of the biggest places I approached, the Huffington Post, did a story on it, and then when they did a story on it, it's one of the biggest news websites of all, and then everywhere picked it up then. Some of my favourite websites like Wired and Gizmodo, it went all over the place, and so we ended up with 1 million views in 10 days, and then it crashed down, and we've got 1.3 million now over the next half a year or whatever.
But you can see the two different approaches as well, which is quite interesting. You've got a very short film, you've got a longer film. Your film might be more suited for viral stuff and internet watching. Your film might be slightly longer and a bit more art house and maybe more suited to watching in a cinema. So you can see the kind of different approaches here.
So yeah, I think consider what's best for the film and consider what you would like to get out of it, because I've been lucky enough that some of my films have played at great festivals and won some awards as well, but I think the best buzz I got was through this online release. I know there was definitely some luck as well, but it was a fantastic buzz, and execs are really, really interested in it. I think much more than festival prizes, actually, to say that 1 million people watch your film that quickly. It's quite appealing, and so think, why do you want to make your film? It's probably not just an artistic statement. You probably are trying to move on to something else, and there's different ways to get there than the standard route, I think.
Interesting. Okay, any more questions? Yes, guy in the middle. Thank you. Yes, you. Wait for the mic. Hi, what's your name?
Hi, Hello?
Hello.
Hello, I'm Steve.
Hi, Steve.
My question is regarding crowdfunding.
Yeah.
Have you any experience of that, and what do you think of the actual concept?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's... so I managed to fund a music video early this year. Well, we were trying to get $4,000 and we ended up with $3,000, and we went and made it, and that was through Indiegogo. I think it's quite hard to get your film fully financed through crowdfunding. It normally... I think it works when there is a special interest that hooks in an audience outside your own friends and family.
So something like a documentary about a specific issue or something like that?
Yes, it doesn't have to be that. It could be a particular actor that has a substantial base, but some sort of hook, whether it's a band or an actor or a campaign film. I mean, obviously that's the classic way to do it with a documentary that's a campaigning issue. But I think... if you can get a lead actor who is willing to publicise your film on social media, and they have an audience of, I don't know, over 5,000 or something, then you'd be surprised. A lot of people are willing to give a few quid in order to support that. There's these really obsessive fan bases about particular actors, so I think that's an interesting way to go. I'm so pleased we did as well as we did without any particular exciting hook. There was no actor. The band, it was semi-known. They're from Glasgow and they're called the State Broadcasters. And they've subsequently been featured by BBC Music, and it's kind of picking up now. But they only had a couple of hundred followers on Twitter. So I'm really impressed that between us we managed to get that together. But yeah, look for a hook. What's going to encourage an audience to fund your project outside just liking you.
And you were saying earlier that Vimeo are now including a button on their site where you can click and donate.
Yeah, tip jar. I wish that had existed before School Portrait blew up. But yeah, it's a button so that you can give micropayments as a kind of reward, a like for a particular film. So obviously that isn't going to finance your film because you've already made it, unless it's a trailer. I don't know if people would pay money when they've seen a trailer. But no, I mean, I think that's an interesting way to... I doubt people are going to make enough money to make careers out of that, but it could give you enough to make another film. You never know.
Some licensing fees of music that you haven't cleared, or something like that.
Or even festival submissions.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, the design of that isn't to do with investing in the... I mean, obviously you could portray however you want, but the way Vimeo's portrayed it, it isn't investing in you. It's just a kind of thanks or like, and a micropayment of $1 or whatever.
And I hear that... Sorry, did you have another...
Well, I suppose one way to gain funding is to produce a trailer. And if people like it, and they want to see the final film, then they tip it, and then you use that money to actually pay for the film.
I think that could work, but I just don't know.
Better to call it a pilot,
Yeah.
rather than a trailer, because it, a pilot just shows what you could do. A trailer kind of shows what you've done, but not all. So you don't want to confuse people. And
Teaser.
Like a teaser, yeah.
But I think there does need to be a hook. I've had loads of friends who have tried to fund project pitches from a trailer or just a pitch or whatever, and none of them have succeeded. And so don't be over optimistic. Think, why would strangers really be willing to put some money into this? And yes, they might if they just like the concept, but are there enough people out there who would be willing to do that? Maybe, but I think look for your hook is my...
It's brilliant, but it's also very, very crowded kind of marketplace now. So you've got to really find a way to stand out.
And Kickstarter apparently has started over here in the last couple of weeks, which is a big one in the States, but now is available in the UK. And I think it takes a lot of work, doesn't it, for the producer to kind of create a campaign around the funding for that. And maybe you want to just concentrate on developing the script or something, I don't know. But yeah, I think it's a brilliant way. But like you say, not just on its own, in association with the other kind of ways of raising cash. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thanks very much.
Anybody else got a question? We haven't got a lot of time. I think we need to. Hi.
Hello, my name is Richard. Hello. My name is Richard. I just want to ask, when you get your actors, your help for free, like people work for you for free, like that's school. What do you give them? What you offer them for in return? To get people.
Yeah. So I mean, obviously it's a grey area. You're supposed to pay people minimum wage. I think that it's acceptable, and I think Bectu and everyone would find this okay for a group of collaborators to come together. And it's not illegal for you to ask your best mate to help you move house without paying them. So I think everyone wants to get something out of it. Otherwise, why would they do it? So it could be just that they're a good friend. It could be that it's a step up for them. And so with that, you'd want to be finding collaborators who have enough experience to do the job, but that they would like the credit, basically. I think. When you're looking for those collaborators, something that I always look for is someone who isn't going to just be jobbing about it. They're not just going to want to roll up on set and expect a high budget production when the budget isn't there. So I think I always look for heads of department who will help me add up the in-kind value of the project. A DP who might have some friends at kit houses because they've done some commercials and is willing to call in a favour, or a production designer who's just come off a drama and so has some friends at a props house, that kind of thing. So the producer can't do everything themselves, and whatever you can bring in to up the in-kind value will make the film look better and makes you less reliant on traditional funding. So I know I skewed from the original question.
But I suppose the thing is that all of those crew members and HODs are also doing the same thing, which is trying to develop their relationships. So they're looking for directors and producers who they think will go on to make feature films that they might get some work on, and you know, so everyone's kind of, I mean, it doesn't always work like that, but it is a lovely way to work, which is trying to build, you know, come up with other people and build really strong working relationships and sort of that work creatively and, you know, personality wise. So and you know, there's lots of examples of that in feature films where people have come up through shorts or through ads or whatever. Same with Ben Wheatley's films. With Kill List was shot in, it's quite low budget and shot in 3 weeks, and most of those crew had worked together on lots of ads and on Down Terrace, so they just know how to work together really quickly and they get on really well, and it was very easy and kind of harmonious shoot for something with such a low budget, and that's probably their motivations for working for nothing before, is in order for that to happen in the future.
And as you said, the kids were at the stage school, so they got a showreel piece out of it. Yeah, I mean, generally, there's a legal minimum wage in this country, but I think collaborators is the key word there. If people are collaborating in a genuine way, then yeah.
And you know, if you have the money to pay people, then of course you should. And whenever I've been working on projects where people haven't been paid, I haven't been paid either. So you know, it's kind of yeah.
Any other? Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Are you at film school?
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? Hi. Do you want to wait for the mic?
Hi, it's a message for Jude actually. Filming the scrapyard, what kind of issues or problems did you face doing that with the health and safety insurance?
Terror about people hurting themselves.
There was a moving car, wasn't there?
Yeah, there was all sorts of, I mean, I was sort of did do some serious recce's of that and spoke to everyone who worked there and made myself very known to start with and looked at all the possible, you have to do proper risk assessments, and I mean, you know, we were completely insured. We had a really great, this is kind of a random thing, but we had a really great insurance company who were sort of also interested in building relationships with new producers. So they were just kind of like, no, you can't do anything. They've helped us to make sure it's not just about being covered. You just don't want anything bad to happen. So it's just, you know, making sure that, you know, which areas the crew can go in. There's just needs to be a very, very strict plan, and everyone needs to know about it, which is where they're allowed to go, where they're not allowed to go. I mean, it's a working scrapyard, so there's lots of people who work there every day. You have to make sure everyone's wearing high vis when they're meant to be, or hats or whatever. So in the end, it wasn't. It was fine. I think it was very different from, you know, it's not like just a random scrapyard where there's no one there and there's stuff all over the floor. You know, I think the key thing is that it's working and it's like fairly safe. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yeah, lots of health and safety going on at that point, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Lighting work areas, that kind of thing.
Because there's all the power supply stuff and making sure that it just really, like, it's kind of the organisation, the communication, and making sure that everything, if in doubt about anything, you check it, which is like, I mean, some people will say, why are you checking that? I already checked it, but it's best to check 3 times whether or not a cable from your lighting supply is allowed to go into a particular other power supply, because obviously that could cause something quite serious. And also just being careful about where there might be petrol and things, because we did actually have a fire scene, so obviously we had to make sure that was kind of outside of the main bit of the scrapyard. So I think it's just kind of, triple checking everything with anyone who will know the answer. I've just had a mental blank because it's the guy's moved. I could probably can't tell you at the end.
Jude's chairing another panel now, so she's going to be around all afternoon. So if you want to catch her at some point, she could probably have a look in her phone and see who it is. But yeah, it's really important to have a good insurance company, somebody that's behind you, not kind of telling you off all the time or hindering what you're doing. So I think we have. Are there any more burning questions? Because I think I'm going to start wrapping it up now. Is there anything that anybody wanted to ask before I finish? Okay. Yes.
Just a question. Like, do you know how many short films
Somebody did a. Do you remember when somebody did a research project about how many were made and how many are successful? Did you say? The question is how many shorts are made in the UK per year and how many are successful. I think I remember a figure. Somebody telling me a figure of about 1,500 to 2,000 films a year, and that was a few years ago when there was more funding. In terms of success, it's very difficult to measure, but you probably say maybe about up to about 50 films a year become kind of really successful and that lots of people have seen and stuff like that. Do you think?
I think it depends how you define really successful.
Yeah.
I think properly successful, I'd probably only say a handful,
Yeah,
to be
true.
honest. But yeah, I mean, probably something like 50 if you're talking about those that are getting decent selections at festivals. I mean, obviously there's only so many slots at London, Edinburgh and Encounters.
You do tend to see the same films as well. If you go on the international circuit of festivals, you see the same films, you know, within a year period, because there are only a handful of films that are really, really good.
There's so many amazing festivals all around the world. So some films don't get into all the ones that you might have heard of. There'll be some might get into like 10 somewhere else, and then I don't know. There's a whole another panel coming up about that.
And then obviously there's a lot of very professional experienced programmers out there. However, I think there's so many films out there that they do often have to rely partially on what has been where already. And so, I mean, I've found with a couple of my shorts that have done well on the festival circuit that, you know, no one's really interested, and then, you know, you get one great festival spot and then people are then taking the film or calling you up requesting the film. So it's trying to get on that treadmill is the hard.
You need to go to Jude's panel, which is on, when is it?
It's got in 10 minutes.
10 minutes, and it's all about
Because
festivals and getting your film out there. Thank you very much, everybody. Thanks, Jude. Thank you, Michael.
Virgin Media Shorts, championing undiscovered talent.